Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to the EEA. We're presenting Ethereum in the Enterprise 2022. This is our first ever event where we're combining a products and services showcase, where you get the opportunity to meet industry leaders, speak one-on-one, and network, collaborate, find out what's going on in this amazing Ethereum space. And I would like to bring up our first speakers, Karen and Tom. So we've got Karen Scarbrough of BP, and we've got Tom Lyons of the EEA, and they're going to be talking about the state of Ethereum and the Ethereum ecosystem. So Karen, Tom, I can see you, so it looks like you're on. I'm going to hand it over to you. All right. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having us. We're getting the slides up here real quick. So as James mentioned, I work for BP in our Blockchain Center of Excellence and help run that center and keep up with the technology there. And Tom's going to come on and talk about a bit about what he does and more about Ethereum here. So we've kicked off the EEA with a talk on the state of Ethereum for the past few sessions, where we run through just some information on what's happening in the ecosystem and how it's growing, where the growth sectors are, and what to pay attention to. So on the first slide here, some really strong information about what's been happening in Ethereum over the past year, and that the amount of transaction volume settled on the Ethereum network was over $11.6 trillion last year, which is quite enormous in comparison to Visa, which did 10.4 trillion, and then Bitcoin did 4.6 trillion. The Ethereum numbers here with 11.6 trillion is interesting to note because that only includes the tokens with over $500 million market caps. And about half of those transactions involve stable coins, which are tied to fiat currencies of some degree. So there's a lot of activity happening on the Ethereum blockchain, and a lot of it tying back to real world financials with stable coins as well. And on the next slide, given that volume and the size of activity that's happening, the Ethereum Layer 2 RollUp Ecosystem really kicked off in a significant way last year. Although its underpinnings you could really trace back even a decade ago as to when people started thinking about how in the world are we going to scale these blockchain ecosystems. So if you're not familiar with the Layer 2 ecosystem, this is what Ethereum is using to scale the activity that can happen on the Ethereum blockchain. And the image on the left there shows that what Layer 2 does is it basically rolls up transactions in a proof that is posted on the Ethereum blockchain, and the methods of which inherit the security principles of the core Ethereum blockchain. So you get the benefit of the robustness of the Layer 1 chain with the improved speed and lesser transaction fees of a Layer 2 RollUp ecosystem. And this is where the major applications are planning on building and operating in the future. So to the left, you can see the numerous different systems and the Layer 2 ecosystem. And for the most part, besides some pioneers like Loopring that launched in 2020, most of these systems have come out mid to late last year and have started accumulating not only users, but total locked value as well. And when we refer to total locked value, that is the amount of assets locked in DeFi protocols there. So a lot of activity happening on Layer 2 and more to come in this year without a doubt. And on the next slide, you can see how this premise of moving transactions and activity to Layer 2 for scaling is starting to happen. So as I said, mid to late last year, these ecosystems started rolling out, and you can see in the purple there are the Layer 1 transactions that happen on the core Ethereum blockchain, but there's an increasing amount of activity on Layer 2 that is happening, and that is intended to be where things go in the future for how things will continue to scale. And on the next slide, you can see as far as growth metrics and looking to how big things could possibly get and really scaling beyond the blockchain users that we have now, but to more that we anticipate in the future. The percent of transaction fees or gas that is used by those L2 contracts posting transactions on the core Ethereum chain. So this is speaking to those layer 2 ecosystems that bundle a bunch of transactions together in one and then put that on the core Ethereum chain, which is a core part of how they work. That percentage of transaction fees by L2 contracts, it's on average about 2% of the total gas a day. So that means of all of the transactions that happen on Ethereum layer 1's chain, about 2% of those transactions in terms of gas are used by L2 systems. So this means that L2 systems have a lot more capacity to grow and how they consume layer 1 Ethereum blocks that allow for orders of magnitude more transaction capacity. For a frame of reference, the largest layer 2 ecosystem to date, Arbitrum, has about 50,000 transactions per day. You could see that from the previous list, there were about 20 different ecosystems, of which I don't have the detailed data on, but in comparison to Ethereum as an overall blockchain, it does 1.2 million transactions per day. So you can see with all these different systems, there is a lot of opportunity for scaling, and as these are new and just now developing, there's a road to adoption and even perfection of these systems within themselves, since they are very new. To get there, but it is very exciting to see that happening. And then lastly, as far as metrics go on the next slide, well, before we get to that last point, the other component here to pay attention to is the continued DeFi user growth. So we started talking about DeFi user growth back in 2021 when users had just nearly surpassed 2 million. And right now, to date, we have 4.6 million users, and total DeFi users over time. Users are denoted by unique addresses here. So it is possible that users have more than one unique address here in the ecosystem, but in general, the trend is upwards and positive, which is a good thing. And then the last metric I wanted to point out here, and is important for the ecosystem on the next slide, is around what's called client diversity. And this is something that the Ethereum community is very keen on addressing and paying attention to as a positive metric. What this refers to is there are different versions of the nodes and Ethereum clients that host the blockchain, whether they're miners or archival nodes, full nodes, all these different types of ways to ensure that the Ethereum blockchain copy stays in completion somewhere and is accessible, secure, decentralized, etc. And so anyways, on the left side, you can see the consensus clients referring to the beacon chain clients, which are used for proof of stake. And the objective here, and where you see the percentages lined out, is that these clients really shouldn't have, ideally should be more fairly distributed. The clients here are written in different languages to allow for, if there is a bug in one language and something encounters an issue, the other clients can support the continuation of the network. So it's important that for proof of stake, for Ethereum mining in general, that we as a community do not rely too much on one type of client, but can spread out between these different types and allow for some more robust security there. So on the right side is the execution client supporting Ethereum right now. And although the client diversity is something that continues to need to be addressed, there's also really impressive improvements in this category as well. One to point out is the Aragon team project condensed an archival node down to 1.6 terabytes from 6 terabytes last year. And that is a 75% reduction in storage requirements. And that's really significant because archival nodes are really important to hosting and accessing the history of the blockchain. So in comparison to the blockchain ecosystem as a whole, client diversity is something that is fairly unique to Ethereum. So even though the metrics here are not as exciting as maybe DeFi user growth, they are something that is still a positive for the ecosystem as a whole, and considering the real path to positive security of the network and robustness in the future. So at this point, I'll hand over to Tom.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks a lot. Hope you all can hear me. As Karen and James mentioned, my name is Tom. I am a communications and marketing guy who's based in Switzerland. I've been in the crypto world since about 2016 in various capacities, but most of my work is geared towards, as a non-technical person, I'm geared towards bringing the message out to the wider world. And right now I am working with the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance on a number of projects, one of which I will tell you at the end of this presentation, where we are looking to talk about business Ethereum and trying to get the message out to what are the advantages of decentralized business applications of Web3 to business contexts. And the point of this presentation here is really just to give particularly those who might be new to the space an idea of how much activity is going on. So Karen gave you some of the metrics of the transactions and the activity within the networks, and I want to show you more of the kind of projects and the companies and all of the different things that go into the that make a part of this space. So starting here, and by the way, we picked these slides from the, just from various things in the internet. You could probably find thousands and thousands of other examples of similar slides out there, just to give you an idea, if you're new to this space, the kind of things you might be confronted with. This here, we're showing the Web3 stack. This is basically a look at one way to slice and dice the infrastructure that you'll find in this space. You have the layer 1 blockchains Karen discussed. That is your base layer. You can think of it as the settlement layer. That's where the trust and security live. They're the layer 2s, as Karen mentioned. These are components that have grown up or being built to speed up and increase the capacity of layer 1s, certainly on the Ethereum blockchain. Obviously, you have various development environments that you need. There are options out there for decentralized file storage. IPFS, probably one of the more famous ones, been around for a long time, where we're replacing centralized clouds with, in theory, decentralized cloud versions where people share space on their hard drives. You have components for indexing and querying, for getting data on what's going on the chain, which can be very useful. You also have oracles. Now, oracles are there to get data from outside the chain. So many things in the Web3 and blockchain world are automated through smart contracts, and these contracts often depend on data. And you want to be able to bring your data into your smart contract to trigger a payment or whatever it might be. And you need components that help you do that. Then there are other things. The off-chain data post identity is a big issue, and the different clients, which I think Karen mentioned. So this is sort of a one way to slice and dice the infrastructure stack. We wanted to take a look at DeFi. That's on everybody's mind these days. And so DeFi is basically means all the efforts out there designed to try and replace the traditional financial system with decentralized alternatives. And as you can see, there's plenty of activity here as well. At the bottom, you have your custody providers. So instead of having a bank, you have you can self custody your assets, or various sort of centralized or decentralized or semi-decentralized options for holding your tokens. That's a very important thing. You don't lose all your money. There are protocols for decentralized peer-to-peer lending, stable coins to help you do transactions on a blockchain without worrying about cryptocurrency volatility. The oracles I've mentioned. Of course, there are many decentralized exchanges out there for trading, and you have other, sort of sorry about that. You have other financial services options like asset management or data analytics. That's the Bloombergs of the DeFi world. And as you can see, there's plenty of activity in these spaces. And this is another slide doing the exact same space, just sliced and diced in a different way, to give you a sense that that's possible. Here we have the lending protocols, infrastructure. Here they've included prediction markets as an option. So that's where people make bets on what they think is going to happen in the future, and you can use that as a way to make your own investment decisions. Payments, compliance, stable coins are here as well. Asset wallets and asset management. Those are your custodial options. Here we're talking about non-fungible tokens, NFTs. These two are on everybody's mind these days. Again, there's a pretty large stack involved here, and a lot of different providers and a lot of different things that go into the NFT world. And I think these days, everybody's talking about NFTs for art, NFTs for collectibles, NFTs for gaming. And as is often the case in technology, a lot of the fun stuff leads the way for applications and use cases that are also can be more serious. So I'm working on some use cases now where we're talking about NFTs for supply chain, NFTs for patient data in healthcare, NFTs as a way as sort of unique carriers of non-counterfeitable carriers of data. And with this, you can open up some interesting business cases and some interesting use cases for how people can control their own data and how we can better share trusted data. And finally, coming to decentralized autonomous organizations and DAOs. This is also quite popular these days. A DAO is really a way to use a blockchain or decentralized technology to self-organize. So people are looking at DAOs as a new way for making cooperative decisions. There are a lot of DAOs these days involved in various kinds of venture capital. So they raise money and then people get together and vote on how they want to invest this money. But in theory, you can build an organization that runs itself completely on code with these various kinds of DAO tooling. I think that fully autonomous organizations, in my opinion, may be a while away. But what's interesting from a business perspective, maybe using these kinds of tools and these kinds of applications to automate parts of a business, maybe your accounting or maybe procurement or things like that. So I hope this gives you a bit of a sense of the richness of the ecosystem from the provider point of view. And last but not least, I said I'm working on a project here. We are working on a Ethereum business readiness report, and we have a survey going. And, with all of this action going on in the ecosystem, more and more people are building things for real business use cases, and we're trying to find out who is. So if you have a use case or you have some opinions on the business readiness or not of the Ethereum ecosystem, we'd appreciate very much if you'd hit the button and fill out the form. And you will also find the link in the on the message board of the event. And with that, I will give it back to James, and I guess I'll stop the share.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Karen. Great way to kick it off. And yes, I was going to say that message board, that link's there. So please check out that link in the message board on your upper right. So again, Karen, BP, Tom of the EEA, thank you very much. So